Hello. Welcome back to Antics, School Edition. We're behind some crates. We see some football fields, some crows, some baseball fields, some track and field discus throw fields, and I'm here with Riya Belani.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been listening to a lot of your podcasts, actually.
That is very interesting to hear.
I like listening to other people's perspective on things. Like, podcasts, I feel like, are an opportunity to hear other people's opinions. Like, it's really raw because it's just recording a conversation.
It's just like a flow.
Right.
That's what I love. I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. Like, I'm a big fan. I agree with what you say. I think it's a fantastic medium. I'm a big fan of. Oh my God, I'm just a big fan of podcasts as a whole. Like,
yeah.
I just love listening to other people like talk. I think about it like a lot, like when I'm in just like daily life too, you know, when I'm just like listening to people speak.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, this is like so weird that you're saying these things. I wonder why. You're saying, like, I don't know.
Or like I'll have a conversation with someone and I'm like, I wish I could document this so other people could hear it because I feel like they could learn something.
Damn, that's
from
trippy.
this conversation.
And like in the moment you're thinking about that.
Yeah.
That's hella interesting. These kids that are eating lunch near us keep throwing grapes against this fence, and the grape just rolled over to us. So that's what's happening in the physical world right now. But so I'll let you take it away. What do you think? What do you want to talk about?
I was thinking we could talk about college because I feel like that's what's on everyone's mind right now.
That is a great question.
I don't know what your plans are for the future. So.
Okay. So you should listen to. I'll talk to you. I'll explain my philosophy on it. But you should listen to the one where Suey and I talk about college. We talk. He shares me his like ideas. I kind of forget it, so I should probably listen to it back. Which is another reason, like, why I love doing podcasts is because I love listening back to like my own thought process. My own thought process. I talked about it to Hannah and Fox yesterday about how like I'll listen to what I say and then I'll like I know what I'm thinking about in the moment, but like it's just weird and like because the only thing that people are like understanding are like the words that I'm saying.
Yeah.
It trips me out. So, college, right? College.
Yeah.
So, I'll start. Basically, my idea is that I'll be happy wherever I end up, right? I'll be happy wherever I'll end up. So, I'm not too stressed. The process of doing it and people around me that talk to me about the concept of college make me stressed. I don't stress myself out about college. It's not like something that is like on the like edge of my mind that's constantly burdening me. It's something that like is fucking confusing to me.
Right.
It's confusing to me why everybody is like thinks so highly of it and like has these philosophies of that it's gonna change and like affect their whole life. When in reality, it's just 4 years, and it's just this, like, your education that, like, leads you into becoming a cog in the wheel of the economy.
Yeah, I understand that. I think you're right. Like, I think about, like, if I was just my own entity and I didn't really, like, interact with other people or kind of absorb other people's opinions, which I feel like I do a lot, I wouldn't be as stressed out. Like, when I'm in my own mind about college, I'm like, oh, I'm in a good place. I wrote these essays, I submitted my favorite college applications, like I've put myself and my like personality as best as I can on a piece of paper on the computer and submitted it, and it's just like up to fate at this point. But then you talk to other people and it's like, oh, they have all these activities and they're applying to the same college as me, or they did better in sophomore year than I did. And that's something I just didn't think about the past a lot until now. Like, I'm reflecting on like how I studied previously in high school. Yeah, and it's like I can't go back in time and change that.
So when you think about your like how you did in sophomore year compared to someone else, were you thinking about it in the moment in sophomore year? Like, how much has college been on your mind like throughout high school?
I think it's on my mind more than like the average person because I've always been like really passionate about going to the med field. So like,
so you want to make sure you get the best
so
options to get a good program?
Yeah, it's not necessarily like, oh, go to an Ivy League. Like, I'm not applying to any Ivy Leagues. That doesn't really interest me as much.
Gotcha.
But it's just like, college is a big deal because it's like a stepping stone for med school and just my future and everything. It's going to be really heavy in education.
How does money play a factor in this conversation?
That's the most stressful part for me because I would say that, like, I'm really fortunate that we all, like, I can't speak for everyone who lives or goes to California high school, but I'd say a lot of us live in San Ramon, so we're all pretty fortunate and
big
decently well off. But it's at a point where it's like, I don't think any of us are millionaires, so you can't afford to pay $80K a year to go to those top tier schools, or not even top tier, just private schools in general are so expensive. So I think about that a lot when I apply to school. It's like, would I even go here if I didn't get some sort of scholarship? And then people ask me, what's the point of applying? And it's like, well, there's always a chance, you know?
So with my perspective on the money side of it is like, I trip out a lot about it because like of the why. Like, why is money like it's obviously such a big factor, but then you have to think. I put myself in like perspective and then like of like other people's perspective of money. I wish people would stop screaming.
I know.
It makes me uncomfortable. Fuck.
They look really young.
They are very young. They're probably freshmen. God, the youth.
My sister's a freshman. She's working her way through high school.
When you look at like your social behavior and just like with the, are you interested in sociology at all?
Kind of. I'm in psych right now at DVC because I just couldn't deal with going to school more than 4 periods. Like, I do an 8 through 4, and it's probably the best decision I made for my senior year.
Dude, that's horrible.
I
mean, great.
I mean, it's great.
But like,
it's great.
I did an 8 period with Mr. Singh last year,
Oh,
not by
no.
choice, but it was like the most dreadful like experience of like my life.
I have Gov as an 8 period, so I don't mind it actually at all.
Who do you have for Gov?
I have Vidrio.
Oh, that's cool.
So I ask a lot of questions in that class because the way our government works, the more I learn about things at school, the more I realize that it's really not effective. Like, we're talking about how the primaries, like...
Not effective in what sense?
Like, one thing we learned about is how the primaries are different dates for different states. So, like,
right.
California just got moved to, like, Super Tuesday, or, like, it's
and
March.
how, like, that affects, like...
Right, so, like,
the grand scheme of America.
Right, how Nevada, I think, has their primaries before us, so they could weed out a Democratic candidate that California would want. So it's like, why wouldn't we just do the primaries all on the same day?
It's all fucking propaganda.
Yeah, I don't understand
It's all propaganda.
Or
like, we think we live in a free society, but it's not.
It's not. Because the Electoral College is...
Like, our votes mean nothing.
You're pissing me off.
Our votes mean... Yeah. Fucking Jesus. Yeah, let's go in the middle of this. Let's just leave our stuff right here for a second. We'll just move into this corridor of... All right, we've shifted into the isolation zone. What? It's gonna amplify it? I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe you can cut out the whatever.
No, there's no filter. I feel bad.
I like that.
I feel bad for my listeners. Like, how do you feel about the sound quality when you're listening to it?
I don't think it's bad. I think, like, it's a little bit lower than, like, music. So if I'm, like, listening to your podcast, I turn up the volume. But, like, the background noise just makes it seem more real.
Oh, yeah?
I like it. Like I said, I like the unfiltered aspect of it.
Yes,
I feel like
absolutely.
the only filtered or, like, scripted thing I kind of enjoy is sometimes those, like, late-night TV shows. But even then, they've become really biased towards...
Do you watch late-night TV shows?
I like John Oliver a lot.
I love John Oliver.
He puts so much effort. I love the voting one. I want to talk to my Gov teacher about it. It pisses me off. Like,
what voting one?
He just released a new video about, like, voting polls or, like, booths and how ineffective they are. So your vote, you would assume that your vote is being recorded correctly. Yeah. And that's not something you can assume, basically.
I choose, like, we just watched the movie Recount in Gov. Oh. Did you watch that one?
Is that about the 2000 election?
About
with,
Gore
like,
and Bush.
Yeah, he talks about that. And just
how, like, absolutely just fucked and, like, corrupt, like, the whole process was, and how, like, bullshit just everything about that electoral process is.
Yeah.
And just how many loopholes and how vague everything is.
I'm sorry.
Spoders. Yeah, this is the real life aspect of.
I'm just gonna. We can stand up.
Yeah, whatever. It's good. I'll just go like it.
Yeah.
But holy fuck.
I don't do well with spiders, honestly. It's one of those irrational fears. You're talking about it in psych, how it's like a learned phobia. Oh, actually, it might be an innate phobia because spiders, we shouldn't fear them because they aren't that deadly in the grand scheme of things, but we do. So he's talking about how that might be our ancestors are afraid of spiders.
Let me talk to you about psych real quick because, hold on, I'm going to walk over here for 1 second. But basically, I just had a lecture in psych where it was with my, so it was with Mr. Quick, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about how memory and how memory is formed. Are you on the memory chapter yet?
So we, as you see, we go really fast. So I'm on chapter 12 already. So we did memory a while ago, and then I took my midterm.
Oh,
but
okay.
I really liked that chapter, like, a lot. It's just so interesting how we, like, encode things, which is why I thought it was interesting that you say you like to listen back to your podcast.
Yeah, dude, because
I do that too. Like, when I have something important, I'll, like, record myself saying it for voice memos.
It's fucking trippy.
Yeah.
It's so trippy. It's like, I think about it when I'm memorizing lines. So, like, my notes, it just got me so much, like, triggering thing. So, like, he talked about, like, placebo effects and, like, how they affect memory and, like, how he gave this example where, like, people, they had people not smoke weed and then take a test where they didn't smoke weed, and the results were like, got a perfect score. And then they had people smoke weed and then take the test when they got like fake weed, and then their test scores were lower. But then when they told people to smoke weed and then take the test and when they actually smoked weed, it was like on the studying process of like with marijuana, like, and because he's like a cannabis smoker himself, so he like talks about and brings his own like I don't know, it's so like. Basically just school now. It's like it took so long, but we're finally at the point where like we're actually interested in the shit that we're learning about.
Yeah, I feel that.
For me at least, because like my schedule I got Gov, which is like fascinating. Like I you say, Gov, it's very interesting like to just be informed about this process and how like ridiculous like it's very ridiculous how like little room for change there is. And then so I got that, then I go psych, and then I go home and I go to work and I get like
that's
money,
amazing.
Boom, done. And then even days, go TA for Mr. Bristol, have a lovely time there. Then I go to social justice, talk about like what's going on in the world. That class is it's like almost one-sided debates, but then but it's not, because we have so many different like unique perspectives that are like bring their own influence and their own experiences onto the topics that make the topic relevant or to themselves. And it's very interesting to like understand how it's relevant to me, and then like how like little we talk about this in like school, and like how little like it's so, because we were to like Riley, can you talk about the yesterday in social justice when we started to talk, because we're doing the Handmaid's Tale, so we're talking about like so women's role in like or like how oppression, blah 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 blah. And then in the middle of the discussion we talked about transracial, and like how it was so interesting just to hear Inaya's dialogue that she was like having with the class. And so we were talking about Miss E, like has these very, very good questions. She's very smart at how she approaches scenarios. Like, and I was like, because we were talking about the difference between if gender is a construct and race is also a construct, but race instead has more of a cultural background, whereas gender, it's just like biology, you know. So that's where she drew the difference. That's where Anaya drew the difference due to the culture. But so it tied into like if we can accept somebody who's transgender because they don't identify with the gender they're born with, why can't we accept someone who's transracial who doesn't identify with the race that they're born with, you know? Like, why do we draw the line between race and gender if they're both constructs? So it was just like so interesting.
That's really interesting. I feel like they both have a social aspect too. Like, I feel like the way you grow up and like where you grow up also affects those, which is not something you think about because they seem so like set in stone, like until recently, obviously in our generation. But like gender and race,
it's super weird how like
everything's really fluid now, and it like causes a lot of problems between people because like some people grew up with more conservative or like hard set families, other people grew up with more like open-minded families.
I had a weird thought when you were saying that. I was just saying those words about how weird how recent everything. Like, what a weird. We're in a weird time to be alive. like what a time to be alive, right? Like, you ever listen to Hamilton?
Yeah,
Okay,
I saw the play.
So
it's
like,
really
I just
good.
thought about how like weird how they're like how lucky we are to be alive right now.
Yeah.
Like, they were alive when America was being built, right? And cities weren't like prevalent or. God damn! Can people stop screaming? Holy crap! I don't know. Do they need help? I feel like screams should be reserved for when you actually need help, and not when you're just like, like that was like a death scream right there. It makes me uncomfortable. But basically, how like weird it is. Cities were like not even a thing when America was being built, right? And until skyscrapers. You know, when like that was in the early 1900s, right? That's 100 years ago. That's 100 years ago. It's just that Earth has been around for 13 billion years, and now we're finally through creating these structures. You know how like weird it is how like history like it's so interesting, but at the same time so like not in our field of consciousness like all the time. Like, you know.
I think about that a lot. Like, when we were at the climate strike, too, I was just like, this is going to be in history textbooks very
that
soon.
trips me out.
Like, we're in a movement for some problem that's a lot bigger than we realize. Like, everything that's happening right now is bigger than ourselves. That's really weird. It gives you a really weird perspective on your existence. Like, it's creepy.
Why do you think dinosaurs didn't have climate strikes? They were like, guys, meteors, ice age is like a thing. Like,
I don't know how scientists are able to understand like the cognitive abilities of animals. Like, that's a question. That's something I think about a lot.
So, want to know what I just thought about while you were saying that is that Earth's been around for 13 billion years, or the universe.
I don't know.
Earth's been around for what, 2 billion?
It's like 4. I think. Like
4 billion, so something like that, right? So how do we know that there wasn't species with the dinosaurs that were like hyper intelligent and like had buildings? Like, if everything just got leveled by the ice age, like the Earth just goes through like processes and like how to like and like you ever seen the movie Day After Tomorrow?
I don't think.
Okay, so it's this movie about like it's completely like action, like kind of like fiction, like thriller, but basically the world is like, and it's going through another ice age. Like like if that happened, like with these fires and like how extreme weather is becoming, like the world could like we're so powerless to nature. I think about it a lot when I'm in the ocean. You know, when you're like floating in the waves, you're just like, I'm such a speck.
Yeah.
Like, the ocean is so vast, and I'm in it, but I could just get swallowed up by it and just, now I'm gone.
Yeah.
It's a fucking weird existential existence.
I was thinking about when you were saying that, how like, I think like the Earth goes through cycles. So if there was like a mass extinction right now, like climate change, I think disease is something I'm really passionate about. Like, I don't know if you've heard about like antibiotic resistance, but we're getting to a point where we're overusing antibiotics in a lot of aspects of our lives. So feeding it to like cows, over prescribing, to where, you know, like bacteria.
Antibiotics, like, are they like in plants too? Like that type of antibiotic, or just mostly in humans?
Like, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say like amoxicillin. I might not be like saying this exactly correctly, but let's say that they feed amoxicillin to cows because it makes them fatter and it keeps the cows healthy. And then we eat a bunch of beef. And then we get, like, our bacteria in the body is like, okay, well, now I'm going to keep mutating so I can survive against this amoxicillin. And now you have, like, resistant bacteria. And if you were to get sick, you can't be treated with that drug.
Oh, because you're already used to it?
Resistant, yeah.
I see.
So what's happening is, like, all these diseases that affect us right now, they're slowly becoming, like, resistant. So I read a book about this over the summer. And, like, they're saying, like, in 50 years or something, we're going to have an antibiotic winter where there's all these diseases and there's no cures. And I think about that a lot because it's, like, I feel like we've become numb to a lot of solutions in our world. Like, I see a lot of problems because the more I learn about, like, I'm in 8th right now, so the more we learn about the environment, the more I'm like, oh, they're cutting down trees, and then there's pollution in the air, and then it's in the water. Like, what are we going to do? There's no solution.
Oh, goodness.
But if you, like, think about all the problems we have solved, like, I feel like we've become numb to a lot of them, which is like, I was talking to you about vaccines before you started recording, but people don't get vaccines anymore because they're not afraid. We don't see polio crippling kids. We don't see like measles as much anymore, and so people aren't afraid. Like, you almost have to scare people into like being afraid of these things again for public safety.
Oh my god, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I think if like there was a mass extinction, I feel like the Earth would rebound, but it'd be like a new creation of a new species, like a higher being. Like they'd have to relearn technology, because technology isn't something you find in the sand, like artifacts. Yeah, I don't know how that would happen.
Human
right? Like
innovation.
if we all died, like
Holy
what would happen
fuck.
to all like the technology and all the innovations that like
I'm
we
having,
created?
I
know.
I'm having an overload of thought right now. I just thought about, oh my god, like I had so many like trains of thought when you were saying that. I want you to keep talking, but like I just want you to be aware that like the word when I just said that, this sound bit of this Kanye West interview just popped in my head of when he said the word Christian innovator, and I like understanding people's flows of consciousness is so bizarre to me.
Yeah, that's really weird. I feel like we're all on the
just,
same
like,
wave or something like that. Like I think that
The potential
Yeah.
of the human brain is by far the most fascinating thing to me.
really.
The
So are you really enjoying PSYCH
Oh my
then?
god,
Yeah.
I love it. Just like, but also how like flimsy we are.
Yeah.
We're
so
when he wrote about.
Do you talk about like the misinformation effect or something
Yeah.
like that?
So
That trips me
talk to me
up.
about the Mandela effect for a second, because that's what I thought about a lot when we were talking about memory, about how that phenomenon is such like a so very apparent in today's
Yeah.
like, and it's just something we don't think about, but then when it's brought to our attention, we're like, why?
Yeah, why
Like,
is it
you
like
know?
that? I think it's like similar with the misinformation effect. Or, like, I think
So
that's
what is the
it's called.
misinformation effect? Can
It's
you
where like
break
your
it down for
memories.
a sec?
So I'm gonna say this. I'm not 100%. My
Okay.
notes are my
You're
background,
good, you're
but
good.
Yeah. I
Just
think
go
it's
off your
where
memory.
like. Whoa, meta. I think it's where you have a memory and people present information that kind of alters your memory. So it's like if
Yeah.
they showed this video
Like loaded
where
questions,
right
too.
where there was a car crash.
Oh yeah,
And,
we do.
Yeah,
we
and
just talked
the
about
way
this.
you ask the question, it changes
How
the way
fast
people
was the
answer.
car going?
Right, and then
How-
was there a stop sign? And you can convince people that the car ran
So
a stop
trippy.
sign when they didn't. And imagine like being a
God.
witness for a crime, especially like
Yeah,
have you
eyewitness
seen like
testimonies.
like all the rape? I forget his
Especially
name.
Brock Turner.
No, the one who's going on right now where everyone's signing the protest to
That one. Oh,
starts
Riley,
with an R.
Rodney Reed.
Yeah, like
Yes.
I need to read up more about that case because it's everywhere right
We talked
now.
about it in social justice yesterday.
Really? Tell
so,
me about it.
Riley, fill in the blank. Come. We got like 3 minutes. Fill in. Come on, and then we're gonna end it on this.
Rodney Reed was accused of killing the woman that he was having an affair with, but
Who was a cop's girlfriend at the time? So he was cheating on a girl who was dating a cop, and then the cop hated Enners, and he was very apparent. So the cop is now in jail, and the cop told somebody in prison because this guy, that Rodney Reed was the suspected, the black man who was arrested for the rape or the murder of this woman. It wasn't murder. It wasn't rape. It was murder.
Oh, really?
So he murdered, rape and murder, right? So they found his semen in this girl, right? But it was because he was
had
having
an
an affair,
affair.
right? So then this cop who was her ex-boyfriend, well, obviously ex because she's murdered, but she was her boyfriend at the time, you know? So when he was in jail, he talked to this his inmate about. He was like, what did he say, Brett? What did he say?
he just talked about how like she had it coming.
Yeah, he was like, she had it coming. He said that to an inmate.
Wasn't he like abusive and like?
Yeah, he was
everything?
totally
Yeah.
abusive. And then the inmate came forward and was like, this dude just said this to me. And so they have this evidence, and the DNA evidence doesn't support that he should be in jail, but they're still going to proceed with the death penalty anyway, even though they don't have the evidence.
That pisses me
It's a
off.
fucking
Besides,
trip.
besides the fact that they're going off of really bad evidence, I don't
Sure.
understand the point of the death penalty.
And he's been in jail for 21 years already.
That's
so,
the
like,
worst.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
it reminds
holy
me of
crap.
that case where those teenage kids were convicted for that crime.
Oh,
that they
of the
didn't
show on
do.
Netflix?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the worst. But like just
That's
the death
bean.
penalty. We learned
Oh,
about that
dude.
in psych, how like death penalty isn't a punishment.
That was
'cause there's
probably-
like negative punishment and positive punishment.
Yeah, so what is that?
Neither.
It's
You're
neither?
taking away a life. You're not, that person isn't learning anything. There's no learning aspect of the punishment.
So you're not gaining, but you're taking away. So it is negative.
Right.
you know?
Well, so my psych teacher was like, since you're taking away life,
It's a
not
negative. It's a negative
punishment.
punishment towards society.
Yeah, so actually
Taking-
negative punishment is taking away something good. So I guess
Right,
if you
okay,
value
yeah.
your own life, I don't know, you could argue that it's negative punishment.
It's a
but
weird like.
it's
you
a
know, I get
weird
you, I
like
get you.
gray area, but I just don't think like that's even a feasible form of punishment. Like, if you want to create a better society, you should teach people lessons instead of like just ending life. Especially because it's a flawed.
You're absolutely
it's a flawed like judicial system.
My
you're
theory,
killing, like, innocent people.
My theory on the death penalty is that it should just be completely axed, and that there should be like, instead, if it really gets to that point, the equivalent of the death penalty should just be like complete like life rehabilitation and like therapy. I know, like, even if they're saying no amount of therapy could work, like, you're using all this money and like resources to like murder this person.
It's
like,
so expensive.
It's the same if you just kept them alive and in jail and like helped them reform. Like, it's a life that you're dealing with, so you don't really have the moral like guidelines that there shouldn't be such room for morality in or personal bias or emotions when it comes into the decision of the death penalty. And that's where we should just take government out of it. But we have to have government because society's a thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I think our talk, do you remember our discussion? We had a big debate in social justice over the if you believe in the death penalty or not, if it should be a crime. And it got heated. It got heated. Tensions were high. It was one of the most interesting conversations I've had, because, you know, we're all like, I'm one of 5 boys in the class.
That's so interesting. I wish I was in social
That's not the
justice.
reason though it was heated, but that was just something I just wanted to
gender
throw
plays
in.
a big deal in like your opinions on certain things, especially
Absolutely.
because it plays a big part of a lot of like debates.
Yeah.
So it does make a big deal that you're one of the 5 boys in the class, but I think maybe for the death penalty it's less like a big deal.
Because men statistically are more inclined to go towards violence.
Really?
As a reprimand for crimes, you know, rather than women are more compassionate just by nature.
Yeah, or we learned about in psych, it's men talk about like, it's like statistics versus like feelings. I don't remember the exact words.
Logic
right?
versus or something.
It's like women are more likely to talk about like, how was your day, whereas guys are more likely to talk about like sports. Bye.
Alrighty.
It's nice meeting you.
Alrighty, rock
I
on.
have time if we can stand here for like
I have work in 20 minutes. I was gonna text you that, but
I don't know.
It's good.
Where do you work?
I work at Savers.
Oh my god. Okay, I don't know if you applied around the same time that Hannah was like encouraging people to apply, but I really wanted to work at Savers, so I filled out the application, had the interview. I got the job because they're really understaffed right now, especially for Halloween.
Yeah, definitely.
And then my parents sat me down. They were like, "We don't want you to work." And I was like, "You drove me to the interview," and they're like, "Yeah, we really don't want you to work right now. It's not a good idea. Like, you have college apps and everything."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my god, you could have saved me so much embarrassment," because I'm trying to shop all secondhand now.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's really the environment's a big part.
Everything I freaking own is second.
It's so much
the
cooler
Savers.
too. I thrifted my homecoming dress and sewed it.
That's hella
We
cool.
were like, "Oh, it's so cool." It's like, "Thank you. You cannot find one similar to this." Like, it makes you feel really unique. And I'm holding a dress right now because I rented it out to a girl at school.
That's
There's
cool.
another one I thrifted. But I can't go into Savers now because I don't want to see the manager, because I literally called him the day before the training and I was like,
they're bums. Don't even worry about it.
Really? I called him and was like, "I'm sorry, I cannot take this job." And
that's tough. I
know.
don't want to think about stupid Savers people.
Do you not like your job?
No, I love my job. I love the people I work with. I'm just we're going through some shit right now.
Is it because of Halloween?
No, it's because of a policy shift.
Oh.
Or it's not a policy shift. It's just that the managers didn't see something, and then now they're like moving me because I'm a minor.
Oh.
So that's weird. But whatever. We're going to end it on that. To be continued.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you very much for joining me. You have any final words?
No, that's all. It was nice talking to you.
Word.